Alright, hello my YouTube brothers und auch für meine deutschen Freunde und Brüder. After 4 days of rain here and gray, miserable days and getting cabin fever already, and I know you guys up north are laughing at me, but it gets kind of depressing. Anyway, I had a couple requests on my last video, guys that give me ideas what to talk about. So quite a few people mentioned bring up the bikes, bring up some of the rides I've had, some of the problems I've had with the bikes, and I got to thinking about it that maybe doing a video with the pictures and talking over that would be better on the bikes I've had, even though I don't have pictures of all of them. But that would be a better one. So what I've decided to do here is go into one of my bigger adventures when I was younger, which was, and let me warn you now, this is going to be a long video. I might split it into two, or grab yourself a case of beer and listen to all of it at one shot. I don't know. We'll have to see how long it goes. In either case, the adventure I'm talking about is back in 1978, the beginning of 1978, after Daytona Bike Week. I got back. I was unemployed at the time, and I had spring fever pretty bad. I wanted to go on the road. Florida had a real bad economy. We had that oil embargo, with not getting fuel, and I think we were just over that. We'd just gotten past that, and there was quite a recession going on, but cheap minimum paying jobs was still able to be had, and I was willing to do just about anything to make a living, including a few things that weren't quite so legal. Nothing major though. Anyway, so I decided a trip to California might be cool. I've never been to California, and actually been very little around the United States. Actually, I was born and raised in Germany, and I'd been around Europe more than I had America. So you hear all the stories about California back in those days, how cool it was. You had the Barris car guys building the Munster cars and stuff like that. You had all the drag races going on at Pomona, all the big names, Snake, the Mongoose, Big Daddy, all those guys were there. All the custom bikes and stuff were out there. Easy Rider magazine was out there. And I thought, wow, that'd be great, man. Let me get on the panhead, pack up, and it was a 56 panhead, chopped out, Easy Rider style, long front end, hardtail frame. And I thought, well, let's pack up the sleeping bag, the pup tent, a little Boy Scout mess kit, and a couple pairs of clothes. That was about it. That was about all I took. Had a fair amount of money, and I'm going to be stopping this video here and there. I've got a fire going, and a lot of this dried up wood is burning very quick, so if there's a skip jump, you'll know why. And anyway, so off I went. Maybe a week or two after Daytona Bike Week, I headed out towards California. And now riding that hardtail, doing 200 to 300 miles a day it really takes it out of you. And I think I was about 21. That right? Yeah, 21. Yeah. So I made it up into northern Florida. Florida is the worst ride. I mean, the east coast of Florida is just blah. There's nothing to see. It's flat. It's uneventful. There's no real scenery. Not on the highway. Back in those days, I don't even think I-95 went all the way through. I think it ended in Wildwood, and you had to hit the turnpike for a while and then get back on it up north somewhere. But I headed over to I-10, which would take me across Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and into California. So by the time I got to Biloxi, I hooked up with a guy at the campground. And remember, state parks back in these days, you could camp for free, and you still might, I don't know, unless you want electrical or hookup, then they charge you. But if you got a tent and you're actually camping, they let you stay for free back then. So accommodations weren't a problem. And I went up there and I met up with a guy at the park, and he had a deal going with humping trucks, 18-wheelers, unloading 18-wheelers. Used to call it humping trucks. And they pay you $20 a guy for helping unload, and it wasn't heavy stuff. It was, furniture and just maybe repalletizing stuff or anything like that. So you could do 2 or 3 trucks a day easy, without breaking a sweat, and that was pretty good money for back in the day. That would get me down the road, and gasoline, if I remember right, was only about 45 cents a gallon, and that was for the high test, the Sunoco 260 I used to get. And of course my bike had a 2.2 gallon coffin gas tank, which meant I was doing a lot of stopping for gas on the road. So anyway, got up to Biloxi, did that for a little bit, and then I headed across Louisiana a few days after that. Hung out there for a little bit, into Texas, into Houston, and met up with about 4 or 5 black guys on Harleys at a gas station. And we'll stop here for a minute. Alright, so where was I? Oh yeah, the black guys at Houston. Now they were on a bunch of Harley dressers, and they were getting gas. They had a couple of women with them, and they invited me out to a party. Said there was a big biker bash going on, and I figured, yeah, sure, why? What the hell not? I'm on an adventure and trying to meet people and go through the country. So anyway, I follow these guys over to where the party was, and to my surprise, there must have been about 200 black bikers there. There wasn't a white guy in the place, man. I was the only white dot in that whole area. Now, there wasn't no problems. I mean, everybody was pretty decent. I got a couple of weird looks back then, but long-haired white guy, but they really liked my bike, because it was still in the show condition that I had it in when I built it, which, by the way, the picture I showed earlier was of the first build of that bike. So anyway, I hung out there for a couple hours and had a pretty good time drinking beer, smoked a couple joints, hung out, and I said my goodbyes, and went on over into San Antonio the next day, which I really enjoyed San Antonio, because I hooked up with a club out there, the Northsiders, a bunch of Mexican-American guys, and they offered me a place to stay, told me I could hang out and everything, and I kind of worked on their bikes and everything for a little bit of cash, and place to stay and food and everything. So went on quite a couple rides with them, and actually I stayed out there for, it was probably about 3 weeks, maybe even longer. And went up to parties to Canyon Lake, places like that. I had some of the crazy food that they make, like burying a cow head in the dirt, in coals, leaving it in there for a day or two or whatever, and eating cow brains. Interesting stuff, you know, and I enjoy that kind of thing, trying different things, you know, different foods, different cultures, getting to know people, and well, I did at that time. Nowadays, I'm not that into it anymore. But times were different back then. You know, people were a lot more open and welcoming to each other, even though there was a fair amount of, you know, racism, if you want to call it that, or, you know, in-group preference, definitely. And we all had it, and we all knew about it, but we got along. Fuck it. So anyway, like I said, it's going to get long and rambly. I left out of there after, well, I went on a ride with this one guy from the North Siders, and it was nighttime, and I guess he went over to his ex-girlfriend's house, and it was just the two of us, and he told me keep the bike running. He ran over to her car, and he unloaded a whole clip in her car. I mean, crazy shit, you know, ran back on the bike, and I thought, yeah, before I get too deep into this shit, I better carry on. So, going across West Texas and New Mexico, Arizona, was pretty uneventful. I stopped in Tucson, and I pumped gas there at a gas station for a couple weeks. Basically, I needed to build up my money again. So once I got that done, went over into California, and the first stop there was, you know, after making it through the mountains, and I did buy a little gas can, a little half-gallon can. I never did run out of gas, but there were times I was on fumes. So I got into, what is it, 7 palms or 10 palms or 29 palms? I forget. One of the, some kind of rich area that, you know, and I thought, well, shit, you know, I'm still too far east in California. I'm not getting the real thing. So we camped out there outside of town. Man, there were a lot of cops in there, and they were giving me funny looks, which you got a lot of that back then. Being a long hair, being a biker, leathered out, on a chopper, they were just aching to fuck with you. So anyway, went over to San Bernardino. Got the first little shit rat hole motel room that I could possibly get. It was cheap, and I was hanging out there that night, just sitting out front, kind of on a stoop, you know, low down, and having a beer, smoking a cigarette, just you know, kind of relaxing after the ride. And all of a sudden I see these long legs next to me with these 4-inch fuck me pumps on, and I look up, mini skirt, no underwear, and I'm thinking, whoa, yeah. And first thing, you know, she says, do you want a date? And you know, I knew what that meant, and I told her, nah, you know, I'm not interested. She says, well, I'm in room so-and-so, and okay, fine, great, you know. So I'm out there for a little while, and this guy comes out, and he says, don't you like her? I said, oh, she looks good. I said, I'm just fucking wore out, you know, from riding, and we got to talking and everything. He says, hey man, he says, you know, I work in an Earl Scheib body shop. And yeah, I am naming names because this shit happened, and if they don't like it, hey, they should have done something about it. Anyway, so he says, you know, can you do any car work, or, you know, taping or painting? Or, I said, I can't paint, but, you know, I can do almost anything else. Even if, you know, placing crash parts, stuff like that. Ah, cool, come on in the morning. I guess he was kind of her pimp, but yet he was doing something else, so I hadn't figured it out yet. In either case, the next morning I go in, you know, and I said, well, what you got to do? And says, well, nothing really, even though the place was full of cars, man. You know, some of them were taped up, one was in the booth, one was sanded and primed, and you know, but they all looked kind of dusty and dirty. And he says, well, basically, he says, you met the girl last night. He says, we got about you know, 4 or 5 others and everything. And this is what we do here is we set it up for the girls. The guys come in or they call in through the shop. We set up appointments and make dates for the night so that we got hotel rooms booked, and you know, all the hookers have got their night's worth of Johns coming in, and you know, the job of everybody at the body shop was to orchestrate that, and then at night, you know, have a couple guys out there to protect them that nothing foolish went on. Okay, fine, you know, and you know, it paid pretty good to begin with, you know. And I thought, wow, man, you know, that's crazy, man, using a front, you know, body shop for a front for prostitution. So, yeah, I'm not going to go through every little thing I did in California, but in either case, I found out that in San Bernardino that nobody really worked an honest job out there. People were either stoned out of their mind on angel dust or something. They all had a scam going. Everybody was, well, the women especially, they were all going to be movie stars. Every one of these hookers was going to be a movie star. That's what they were out there for. So, yeah, I got a couple girls of my own finally, you know, to join the whole setup, and made good money at that point. And everybody was happy. I mean, it was all mutual agreement, understandings, and you know. So I figured, well, after about a month of that shit, I said, I got to get out of here. It was just too goddamn crazy. Plus, the pollution out there was ungodly. There was a mountain range like 2 miles away. I don't think I saw it for the first week and a half I was out there. So in either case, I figured, well, I'd go north. Go up into Ventura. And we'll continue on in a minute about Ventura. Alright, so back to Ventura. This is where the fun really starts. Now, I've got Florida tags on my bike. And back in those days, there was a lot of club wars going on between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws. And, yeah, I wasn't involved in any of that shit and didn't really care and didn't think about it. So anyway, I go into Ventura and I go to this bike shop, a motorcycle shop. I got a bunch of Harleys there and everything, and I go in, the guy, he admires my bike. I introduce myself and everything else, and I tell him I'm, you know, I'm a mechanic and I can work on bikes if he could use any help. And he says, hey, I'll tell you what, he says, we've had a bike in here that nobody's been able to fix for the last week. So if you can fix it, I'll give you a job. I said, okay, fine, what do you got? So I go in there, and quick job to me. Somebody put solid lifters, push rods in it, and they put the wrong length in the wrong hole, and the bike wouldn't start. So that was a quick job, and the guy was real impressed, and he said, all right, great, yeah, you got a job. And so I worked there for 2 days, and it was on a Friday evening. And he says, well, the guy's coming to pick the bike up tomorrow, and he says, I'll pay you when he picks it up. I said, okay, fine. So that was kind of normal back then, everybody operating on a shoestring. So he says, hey, look, you know, ride with a club, and would you like to come to the meeting, you know, meet a couple of the guys and this and that and the other. So I said, all right, you know, sounds okay to me. I enjoy club parties. I've been to quite a few before and everything else. So this was the Orphans MC. And so I went up there, you know, and the guys were kind of suspicious and, yeah, everything else. They asked me to come in for part of the meeting, and usually non-members don't sit in on a club meeting. Women and non-members. So I went in, and you know, a couple guys, they, you know, have you ever ridden with clubs? And I said, well, yeah, you know, I've ridden with a couple different clubs, and they asked me if I'd ever ridden with any outlaws, and I said, well, I know a lot of outlaws because I'm from Fort Lauderdale area back in the day, and I said I have ridden with them, and you know, never held a patch. And I said, all right, you know, and walked. They asked me to leave the meeting again, which I did, and waited, and they said, hey, yeah, all right, we're done, we're going to go to a bar. So I followed them to the bar, and we get in there, typical, you know, rat soul biker bar, and I've got about half a beer down, and I'd say about 20 Hells Angels pulled up, which didn't think anything of it till they came in, and this big ass mountain of a man, I mean, make Arnold Schwarzenegger look little. He comes walking up to me and he says, he'll tell you what, outlaw, he says, we'll give you 15-minute head start to get the fuck out of town. And I said, look, I'm not, he says, I don't want to hear it. He says, that's giving you more consideration than you guys did to us when we came to Florida. And it occurred to me that not a few years before that, Big Jim Nolan, the president of the Outlaws at the time, and 5 Hells Angels, he killed them and dumped their bodies in the bikes in the rock pits. Now, I don't know all the particulars of it, and this was in the newspapers, and you know, this is not some kind of big secret that I'm giving away. This was all public knowledge. It was a big deal, you know, when they dredged them up. So anyway, I was now labeled an outlaw, and I was told to get the fuck out of town. So, having dealt with 1%er clubs a good long period of time in my life, even at that time, I just figured no sense arguing. I'm going to get on the bike, do what I'm told, and get the fuck out of town. I walked out there, I started the bike, and the man started on the first kick, which, man, she never did that. You always needed a primer kick or whatever. Bike fired up, I got on it, went down the road. By the time I got down to the end of the road, at the stop sign, I saw all the bikes slide up and start following me. Man, I hauled ass up and down roads like crazy, turned the headlights off. Back in those days, you had a, you know, headlight and taillight off running mode. So, you know, silent running, if you will. And I finally found the freeway. I think it was a Ventura freeway, I'm not sure, but had all those goddamn rain grooves in it that catch a bike tire and you're doing a wiggly wobbly. So, I go up and I see the fuckers behind me on an on-ramp, and I thought, Jesus Christ, man, they found me. How did they find me? I got lost in town. So man, I had that bike wide open. It had nothing else to give. And I couldn't see the headlights anymore, even though they were on the on-ramp and they were coming after me. And I took the second exit off, I flipped, went back one exit, got up under the highway, and then I flipped back over to one exit up, kind of followed them, and then got off and went into a wooded area. And I just ditched the bike in the wooded area, and I went to sleep next to the bike for that night. So anyway, that's where we're going to end for this portion of it. I see my battery's starting to run low, and we'll go on from here. I think we'll make this maybe a part 2 of the return from that. So, all right, we'll go ahead and stop it here.